We want to bring to order the Strategic Planning Committee meeting of Monday, October 1st, 2012. The invocation will be led by Councilman Johnson, followed by the pledge.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, grant us the wisdom to make decisions for the betterment of our community tonight. Watch over us as we do our business and as we go home, traveling back to our families. Watch over the citizens of this parish. In your Son's holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we go any further, I'm going to make sure and turn off my phone.
Thank you. I'll let mine go.
We will wait for everyone else to turn off their phones. Okay, roll call. Councilman Dempsey Lambert and Councilman Brian Melanson are not here. Everyone else is present. Public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak on any agenda item, feel free to come up and sign a card, and you will have 3 minutes on that agenda item. Number 4, items for consideration. Ordinance ZT 12-11, reduce residential density across Ascension Parish commercial zoning designations. Planning Director Ricky Compton.
Thank you. Councilman Scheckschneider and I had spoken on multiple occasions about reducing the densities in our commercial zoning designations. And so what I provided for you in your packet are 2 of our tables out of the Land Development Code. At the top, one says existing, the other says proposed. And the differences are within the 3 commercial designations. So within Mixed Use 1, Mixed Use 2, and Crossroads Commercial. So on the existing today, in the mixed-use zoning designation, you're allowed to build up to 8 units per acre of single-family detached housing, 10 units an acre of duplex or zero lot line housing, and 20 units per acre of multifamily residential. On the revised or proposed table, what you'll see is we've reduced single-family to 4, duplex and zero lot line to 5, and multifamily residential to 8. Within mixed use 2, the calculations are the same because multifamily was not allowed. Within Crossroads Commercial, we made the same changes. So single family goes from 8 to 4, duplex and zero lot lines go from 10 to 5, and multifamily goes from 20 units per acre down to 8 units per acre. So these are the revisions that we would need to have in our land development code to reduce the density of residential within our commercial zoning designations.
Yes. And this was brought upon by taking a look at densities, and these densities that were proposed, that we have in place, really make for in more dense populations where we have infrastructure. And since the parish does not yet have sewer, nor parish water and things of that sort, it would not be prudent at this time to have that much density because of the burden it would put on the parish getting these services at this time. And so we would kind of relinquish that to the municipalities to have the greater densities, and then the parish, until we get further services, would have a reduced amount of densities in these commercial zones, because it wouldn't take long. If you look at Highway 44, Highway 61, Highway 42, and a large area of Highway 73 now is zoned in some of these commercial properties. So it wouldn't take long to have some very dense populations in those areas. So that's why this was brought up. Something that we've been looking at for a long time, and so it's up for discussion and or consideration. We can take it and discuss it, take it under advisement. We can send it on to the council. We can send it back to Ricky if we like. Mr. Johnson.
Ricky, correct me if I'm wrong, or educate me a little bit on this zero lot line deal. I thought we did away with that years ago in the code but by looking at this, apparently not, or at least not in some designations of the code?
You know, I wasn't here when that action occurred. I'd have to go back and do some research because I haven't seen any zero lot line communities come in, but I have seen them that were previously approved that they have been building on.
Right.
The way the table reads, it does imply that you are still allowed to do duplex or zero lot line homes in commercial designations. I think that what we haven't seen
That was
is
subdivision.
right. Previously, they were allowed in residential medium. I think the thought was they remained in commercial areas because that's where you're going to do your more dense housing anyway.
'Cause I guess Kent brought up a good point, and I think that's what has always been my concern with the zero lot lines and the setbacks. When you start going to these larger commercial properties and you're putting them closer together with the lack of a water system and all volunteer fire service for majority of the parish, that becomes a major concern, in my opinion, with these larger structures closer together, especially, commercial areas. I think we need to take a look at that. I mean, in the future, I would see where this could be something that wouldn't necessarily be as much of an issue for us when we had the water system and we had, depending on what happens here in the near future, some full-time firemen. But as of right now, without those two, it throws up a flag for me. And I'm not saying that I'm against it, but I would like to make sure we're making an educated decision on this type of thing. Is there some other type of construction or a little bit further setbacks or something? I know the zero lot lines and further setbacks are opposite, but is there something that we can do within the code to help us out with that concern to address that and then, allow that zero lot line type situation or the smaller setbacks? That's kind of what I'm concerned about. I like the idea.
You talking about
of reducing-
residential or commercial?
Or both. I mean, and this is all within the residential and it's part of the residential within the commercial aspect, right?
Yeah, we're dealing with just commercial zoning.
Right. But you're dealing with the single-family homes in the commercial.
Right.
As well as the townhouses and everything else. So, I mean, any type of construction that's on a zero lot line is going to cause us issues, in my opinion, unless we have something else there that's going to negate it. So I would really like to see us think about that a little bit more before we take action on that. I mean, I'm just getting this now. I'd like to kind of digest it a little bit more before I make any recommendations on it. And maybe we can think about that a little bit more before we say adopt this or continue on. It's already there, but maybe in the proposal we may want to move it around a little bit. That's all I got.
Councilman Castle?
I'm satisfied with making these changes. I think they would be effective to accomplish what we're looking to do, and perhaps then Ricky could look at those that are mixed use and residential and see what we could do going forward with that.
I mean, just off the cuff, the recommendation would be to double that other side setback. So a zero lot line currently has 0 on one side and 5 on the opposite. If you make it 10 feet, then you're going to have the same separation that you have in every other community we have in the parish, which is 5 foot off of each side, which is a 10-foot building separation. I mean, that is the simple answer.
Right.
That would take care of your concerns.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the size of the building. But, I mean, it would help. There's no doubt about that.
Well, we can, if I know you're not comfortable with, we can, I would entertain therefore, if you want a further consideration, a motion to send this information with a recommendation to send this for consideration to, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say that the planning commission maybe.
Well,
look at it.
this recommendation has to come from us to the planning commission, is to look at it and vote on, yes. that we should, we could send it for consideration to the councilman, to let them see what they think and then bring it back at the next strategic planning meeting.
You talking about put it to a council meeting?
No,
Or send
just,
it- Get some
just-
feedback from the council
just ask,
and then put
ask
it on the
Myra to
next
send it
agenda.
out for feedback.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I don't have I think we can get some feedback from there and see what kind of recommendations we get from them and
That's-
have a little bit of chance to digest this a little bit more and go from there.
That's pretty much where we were intending, to have everyone get a
If you
chance
need
to
that
take a look
motion,
at it.
I'll make that as a
Okay.
form of a motion.
A motion by Councilman Johnson to send it to the council for their feedback.
Happy to.
Second by Councilman Cazzo. With that, no objection. Myra, please send that out to all the councilmen, ask them to send their feedback on these proposed changes, and we'll consider it at the next strategic planning meeting. That'll give everyone an opportunity to get some input. Thank you, Ricky, for your work on that. Okay, presentation by Montague Architecture, East Ascension Hospital, with recommendation to go to full council on how to proceed. Ken, Tommy? I'm sorry, Mr.
Yes,
President.
we had contracted with Mujo Architect and to make a recommendation to us. Would it be better to actually remodel the old building that we do have, hospital building, or would it be more feasible to build a new one and to come back with a recommendation to strategic planning, and from there they could go to the full council? I think they've done an excellent job in what they've their presentation that they've come up with tonight, and looks like it it may be more feasible to actually build a new building and rather than to try and remodel something that you'll still have an old building.
Thank you, Mr. President. We appreciate the compliments, and we tried our best to do a very thorough job to investigate the two options. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, Council. I'm David Mujo with Mujo Architecture, and I have Tommy Dozat, another licensed architect with my office, here to help me present, to go over these two options. We took, it was about a couple of week, 2 to 3 week period where our architecture firm, we had consultants for mechanical and plumbing, electrical, and as well as a environmental consultant go through the building and look at the to investigate or inspect for any hazardous materials. We have a report included in that feasibility study that goes over all of the findings. He actually had the materials tested at a testing lab, and he has cost estimates associated to remove those materials. So I want to start off with our slide presentation. Okay, as you can see, we did a 3D model just to look at the aspects of the exterior of the building, and you can flip to the next page, and we have a photograph of the exterior. That's, of course, right across the street. It's a 2-story building. It was the East Ascension Hospital. It was a steel frame building, CMU block structure. We have a lot of, and CMU is concrete masonry units. We have a lot of that on the interior. Fire ratings are different in hospitals as opposed to office structures. So there are some issues associated with renovating and changing the occupancy of the existing building that I guess causes that cost to go up considerably compared to the new building construction option. So let's go to the next slide. Sort of a bullet point overview of the highlights of our report. We were hired to assess and evaluate the existing conditions of East Ascension Hospital, develop program to consolidate various parish departments, provide cost estimating and preliminary plans for 2 options. Option A, renovate existing 75,000 square foot East Ascension Hospital. Option B was to compare it to a new building which would in fact be on the same site. So it'd be to demolish the existing hospital and construct a new, what our findings have determined would be a 42,000 square foot buildings. And I'm going to let Tommy go over those findings real briefly on the different departments that we're looking at relocating. Evaluate hazardous materials, including inspecting and testing. Evaluate existing electrical and mechanical systems. Evaluate all departments considered for relocation. So at this time, I'd like Tommy to discuss the evaluations of those departments.
Thank you. We went to 12 previously identified departments, several of which are participating here tonight, including Council Secretary, Planning and Zoning, Channel 21. We went and sat with these guys and had a predetermined list of questions at which we asked them, and just had some discussion, a little fact-finding mission, talking about how their day-to-day function is, public interaction, need for a conference area, how many employees in each department, just got the overall square footage of their department. Are they crowded? Put all this into the hopper and shook it up, and this is what we came out with, the 42,000 that David was alluding to. In the feasibility studies, a little more of a breakdown in which we took the square footage of the existing departments and recommended an addition of space or pulling back a little bit of space. Some of them had a little too much. Some of them were just fine. We took these numbers, we added a percentage for growth, circulation, mechanical and electrical, and that's how we derived at the 42,000. And that's what really the backbone of our whole study is. All our cost estimates, the space on the existing site, everything goes back to this 42,000 square feet. So a little bit of research involved there. We appreciate the opportunity to do the study for you guys, but that's the basis of all our findings. That's where it's all going to come from. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. And the next page is just sort of a breakdown, bullet points on our architectural investigation or evaluation. And option A, as you can see, it requires a new roof. That's on the whole square footage, which is roof-wise is 55,000 square feet. Requires lead paint and asbestos abatement. Requires extensive interior renovation to change occupancy. The layout is not allow for adequate interior daylighting because the spaces are so large. You'd have to introduce some skylighting or something like that. That would also add to the cost of renovating. Original building is 46 years old. That's the two-story section. The addition was put on that added the space to it to 75,000 square feet. Lots of entrances that need to be renovated. The hospital had to have numerous entrances into the hospital for emergency reasons, and it's more than what we would want or need for the government complex. More area than needed. We got approximately 30,000 square foot more space than we would need that would have to be climate controlled. Medical equipment would need to be removed, obviously. There's an underground fuel storage tank associated with the generator, backup generator, that would have to be removed. And the next slide, we have option B, bullet items for the evaluation for the new construction. We can design for project-specific use and function. No need to climate control additional building area. All new building systems and warranty associated with those. Adequate daylighting and more efficient interior spaces, meaning reducing some of the additional corridors that hospitals need. Emergency savings and new equipment. Energy savings and new equipment. That's due to more efficient mechanical and electrical systems. The site can be adapted to new building function. And to summarize that, option A, our cost estimate, as you can see in your report, the total is $7,747,900. Option B is $7,823,700. So very little difference between the two options. And as we mentioned, it goes over, the reasons and the findings. So with those findings, we recommend option B, and that's based on the results of the program, the investigation of existing East Ascension Hospital, the needs of the parish from those spaces to be consolidated, we feel that option B would be in the best interest of the parish. I'd like to open up for any questions.
David, I'd just like to,
Yeah.
just on the energy savings, have y'all estimated anything a year on that?
We did,
a
it was,
month?
Tommy,
We estimated about $180,000 in savings annually, going with more efficient equipment in a new constructed building.
That's not chump change. First of all, we want to thank y'all for a very thorough analyzing all of this information, and it was something that we had been needing for a while. It's good to take a look at all of the parish buildings and such, and the use of them. So, Tommy, I appreciate that. You had something to say on?
Another thing we're basically looking at is, the movie industry here is growing in this area, and there's always a need for a older type hospital here for those type sets. So we're actually we've been contacted by several people to look at that, and movie companies. So it may be that we may have a shell here that we can utilize for those type things, and actually build a new building on another site there on the property. So I don't know, that may work out to something too. But we're not in any big hurry one way or the other to do whatever we need to do. We have we got still have all our departments running and running well. We'd love to consolidate them as soon as possible, but again, I think that this is a decision that we need to think about and look at, and hopefully come up with a solution that's good for everybody, and it will work out the best. So, but again, I'd like to see the movie industry be able to use that hospital and utilize it, and hopefully we can generate some funds by doing so.
Mm-hmm. Well, then they might be able to use part of it.
Yes, and yes,
use all the rest of the building.
Using the interim while we're doing what we're doing. So, but anyway, it's just a thought, a food for thought here.
Discussions.
We got a couple things. So with the cost, the two different prices that you had there, gentlemen, with the 7.1, a little over 7.1 for new construction, is that right? And the 7.
it's set 7.7 for the existing renovation, and it's 7.8, I think it was. Go to the cost, let's see.
For the new
Yeah, you got to flip to the next page on the new construction. There's the total on that preceding page.
Okay. That's what I was trying to find. Okay, yeah. Excuse me. So it's a little under 100,000 difference between total new construction. So and Tommy's bringing up a point about maybe leaving the existing hospital there. That 7.8, that was including demolition and hazmat removal of all the issues
That's right.
associated with the current building there.
That's
So
right. That was full demolition.
if we chose to see if we could make some kind of a go with the existing structure with the movie business, that takes out approximately how much of the cost of that 7.8?
Well, that'd be up to whether you still wanted to abate it, and depends on what they're going to do inside that building and whether they're willing to accept it with those materials if they need to do renovations. But if you look at the first sheet of the new, we've got abatement, demolition broken out, as well as the general
Right.
demolition cost. So you're probably looking, general demolition, you're looking at $225,000
Right.
of savings. So you're now below the cost of the renovating option. The hazardous material abatements, I believe they added up to around 200,000, or a little better than 200,000 also.
Mhm.
So total would be in the 400,000 to 500,000 range for the total demolition cost.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess if in the current, as an existing condition of the structure, does the asbestos and the other materials that's inside the building, does that pose any kind of hazard? I mean, as long as it's not disturbed, it's not going to create any issues, correct?
That's correct. They're not posing a hazard, as long as, like I said, they're not renovating, cutting into any walls. There was some lead paints, there was some lead in some glazed blocks,
Right.
and there was some vinyl composition tile or asbestos containing tile on the floors. So as long as they don't disturb that, you'd be okay to leave it.
And I guess if we were to do something with that, we'd have to come up with some kind of agreement that they would absorb that if they had to do some kind of renovation to it. I mean, that would be another avenue for us to potentially save some money, I would imagine. into the
Correct,
future with that.
and what we could do is if y'all would give us maybe till, because the contract with the people that are renting now, I think it's going to be out in January. So if during that time period we can look at the possibility, and by that time we'll come back to y'all and at that time make a recommendation. And hopefully if we can work something out with the movie people, it would be good because we could preserve the building, but also still build another building.
I
And we
mean,
do.
even if we did the demolition and built a new building, with the savings of energy of 100,000 or more a year, I mean, we're going to more than make up the difference in that cost within a
certainly.
year or two. The cost difference, I mean, it's almost like a no-brainer to go ahead and do a new construction.
I
As long as we
totally
got the
agree.
funding to do that, and that would be my recommendation for that, would be to go ahead with the new construction. And like you said, I mean, we don't necessarily have to pull the trigger on doing the demolition today, or whenever, you know, we've got time to try to get some negotiations with movie companies and so forth, so on, see if we can maybe make some kind of profitability out of the existing structure. That's-
And that's what we're asking for at this point.
Let me ask you something, another question. We have our existing buildings that we have listed here all over the parish. Obviously, it's a tremendous energy cost. I would be curious to see did y'all do anything on the energy costs that we have right now versus, and subtract what the energy cost would be for moving into one building and see what the savings would be? Because that would be our actual savings, you know, more so than just the two buildings. Was anything done there?
No, we sure didn't. We didn't look at all of those, some of the existing departments that would be consolidated. We did not look at those energy bills, as that was kind of a separate item. I think there's not only that, but there's the task of what to do with those buildings once this project would move forward. You know, what
But when we're
happens.
trying to figure the actual savings would be from what we're paying right now, today, in energy costs, which energy costs are continually going up, and then what would be paying for moving all of those things into one area, which I think would be, you know, we're talking about saving 180-something thousand, it would be no telling how much.
Well, and you're right, and there's some other consolidations that could possibly take place of moving other offices in the current buildings that we would vacate that would drop rental prices and so forth and so on, that we wouldn't necessarily have to be paying anymore. So you may wind up with the same energy cost, but now you would be able to move an outlying office into an existing building that we currently own, so you would get out of a lease or a rental agreement there, so you would have that savings. So there's
Yeah.
multiple ways of saving some money with this type of a consolidation.
Tommy, can you all
Yeah,
maybe
we
task
can,
somebody to
you know, I'll
take
give you, for
take a
instance-
look, you know, as to the probabilities of what we could also save from moving things around, because
Well,
you
we-
really don't get a true picture of just how much savings this would be.
Well, it would be tremendous because, like, I'll give you an example. We are renting right now for the DA's office, okay, and paying a pretty good amount per month. I'm not sure. I don't want to mislead you, but you know, we would probably save quite a bit of money there. But say if we moved our offices and we'd move the DA into the White House, the current building that we have, that would save us a lot of money. Mosquito control, by it coming into that building, it would save a lot of money because we could actually shut down the building in the one we have in Santa Monica. That was originally a health unit that they have out, and that would be some surplus property that we probably could actually sell. So there may be several things that we can work out that way and come up with a number, but we hadn't looked at that. But overall, you're going to still come back to the same thing. It's going to be a lot cheaper to actually build something new than it would be to renovate the old.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure, again, give it a little bit of time because of the people that expressed interest in movie sets. Now, if that doesn't materialize in the next few months, well then, hey, we just move on, and that's when they come to you and ask to go ahead and start the. And the other thing is that we're going to have some problems here. I think when the new assessor comes in, I think he needs some more office space that he's been asking for. He's going to hire some new people, and so I don't know. There's no room in the current facility at the courthouse, so there'll be other things like that that's going to be coming up because as the parish grows, a lot of these offices that we actually have to pay for and provide space for, they're going to be growing and they're going to need more room. So, I mean, the clerk of court's already built 2 new buildings in the last probably 8 to 10 years. So, I mean, we're going to always, hopefully if we can consolidate this, we have quite a few acres there that we can continually work with and hopefully have enough room to build all of our complex in one area. That's the goal. And the only thing, like I said, the only thing that's holding things up now is if we could possibly utilize that existing hospital in a way where we don't have to spend any money to actually renovate it, then that would be something else. If not, I say, go ahead and demolish and build something new. We have about $5 million now, and I think we can justify the other 2-point-something million just on the savings that we would get by building a new complex.
Right. Yes, Tom?
Can I get the projector on over here? Or the scanner? I'm sorry, the
scanner.
The scanner. Okay. This is, and it's in your feasibility studies up there, but this is a general outline of the site with the footprint of a 42,000 square foot building, which is orange. You can see we've also shown a couple of other areas, 10,000 square feet right here that could easily be added onto. You could also do an annex over here, 20,000 square feet. So it's kind of just backing up what Mr. Tommy was saying over there. There's plenty of room on the site for additional complexes, no matter what route you take. And this is all single story that we're showing here too. So there's so much potential there.
Yeah, and that was the other thing. I wanted to make sure that we built things with the idea that we could add on
Yes,
without messing up the site, make it flow. I think so.
One comment, if I may, with the movie industry looking at the existing building, one thing we didn't specifically mention was the roof. The roof is still in pretty bad shape. I think it's 27 years old. They typically got a 20-year lifespan on them, so it's already behind or beyond the expected life. So if you used it, you may want to do something to look at the roof, even if it's just temporary patching it or putting a 10-year roof on it or something. It needs to be part of the consideration with using that.
That would be certainly something that would be negotiated if we was on any kind of contract.
Okay. So thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I like Plan B.
Tommy, you're looking at kind of a blessing on having administration study this through January and bringing back your recommendations?
Yeah, we'll if you can give us until January where we can discuss the other option more so, and then come back to you, and then we'll have that other information ready for you and make a report to you in January and make a full recommendation to the council. And if in the meantime anybody on the committee that has any questions or anybody on the council that has any questions, we'd be certainly happy to meet with them, and I'm sure Mr. Mujo will also be happy to meet with you.
Myra, can we make sure all the councilmen get this booklet that they have? And we appreciate y'all. This is very in-depth and very pertinent to what we have, and very good study. A lot of time we get information from studies, and there's really not a lot of information, usable information, but this is very good. We appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody want to make a motion
I'll
to?
make that motion.
I'll
to,
second.
Allow the administration to continue to investigate the potential for the structure and come back to us in January with a recommendation how to proceed.
All right, motion by Mr. Johnson and second by Ms. Cazzo for administration to take a look at this and come back with recommendations in January. Further studies, any further discussion? Any opposition? So be it, plus please inform the rest of the council. Tommy, we're looking forward to moving forward with this in the next few months. Okay. Number 6, grass cutting overlay discussion. Councilman Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this grass overlay is Pacific for the west side of the river. A couple of years ago, we brought this up, and we had a little, it didn't go well, so I'm bringing it back up, and I talked with Ricky Compton, and I also talked with you, Mr. Chairman, on this. We have some areas that, on the west side communities, Lemonville, A-Bend, Smoke Bend, Modes area are communities. They were small communities, not like a subdivision. And so our current ordinance cover all the subdivisions that if they have grass more than 24 inches, we can, public can put a request in so they can look at it and see if there was a violation of it, and then we can send the owner a letter. So basically what I would like to do is do a modification to the ordinance for grass cutting and have a map overlaying those areas with that. And Mr. Compton have a overlay map of the areas. You have that, Mr. Compton? If we can get the overhead. These, as you see on the purple area, is the Smoke Bend area, Modes area, and all that along the river are small communities that they have houses along streets. And in those areas, they have 2 and 3 houses down the land, but in between it, they got high grass. And just to show you some of them, this is Lemonville. This is a Lemonville area, and as you can see, they have houses on both sides. And this also is a health hazard, because rodent, animals, and we have kids in those areas. And as you can see, as we go along, this is a yard, a mobile home, and the grass is all around it, and they have houses next to it. This is not a good one. This is a Smoke Bin area, the lady here, and they have 2 houses on the side of this lot right here, what you see in this area right here, have grown up over the area. And they always calling and asking what we can do. We do not have an ordinance on the book. So that's why it's very important that we try to put something in place for it. And this is the front of that lot. As you can see, the sidewalk, and as you go back, it's about 150 feet depth. This area here is currently in between the, in the Downsonville, as you can see on the left-hand side is the city district, is the city limit. On the right-hand side here is Parish. We don't have nothing to cover that, and we constantly getting calls on it. Fine example we got here on, I want to say Green Gable Road. The houses are in the city limit, but the lot on the other side of it is in the parish. And I'm constantly getting phone calls, the mayor's constantly getting phone calls on that. But as usual, as you can see, this is from the street behind the houses right there. So that's why I'm requesting, I know we have some details to work out on it, but I'm asking that we look at this ordinance and move forward with it. Ask Ricky to work with us on that, and asking you to give us some leeway to go with it. We know the rural area have pastures, fields, the farm agriculture and all those things, but what we want to do is eliminate those areas. So if you live by them, we want to make sure those rules do not violate any of those natural agriculture area or pastures and anything like that. If they're upkept, that's fine. But if if not being used and they're just growing up in grass and it become a hazard, snakes, rodents, and all that stuff is moving into people's home, I think we ought to have the right to let the public at least put a complaint in, and we look into it.
Now, these are areas mostly, Councilman Joseph was talking about, that was subdivision before there were subdivisions. These were little communities that were built before any subdivisions or subdivision regulations was done. And in effect, what they want to do is overlay it to put the grass cutting regulation, the same thing that we have as in the subdivision regulation. We brought this here for discussion so that people can take a look at it. If there's areas that they don't want to be included in this, we can see about eliminating those and have some discussions on it and have some people look at it. But as Eve said, many calls. People have vacant lots next to them or houses, old derelict houses next to them, and they just allow everything to grow. And so there's just an attempt to try to protect the people that are living there and keep those things up. So we don't want to infringe upon any wooded areas or farmlands or anything like that. That's not included in all of this. So we want to make sure people understand that.
And the other thing is, we definitely want legal to make sure that we cover all our bases on this here so we can be legally, we don't have to have any complaints on the other side of it. It's just exactly what Mr. Shakespeare is saying, based on agricultural lands and stuff like that.
Ms. Cazzo.
Councilman Joseph, I applaud your effort, and I wonder why this is limited to the West Bank. I mean, I have areas in the East Bank that obviously need the same kind of ordinance that would allow us to, for the sake of the public, to cut these properties and clean them up. So I would be happy to join you in an effort to get this done on both sides of the river.
Well, what we wanted to start doing is have a model and have something that that we would put out there and try and attempt and see, try to take care of all the problems that may come up with it. We have a parish court now that we can utilize our ordinances and where we could have someone take a look at all of that. Quite simply, this is something that Councilman Joseph and myself have discussed for a number of years, and we've just figured out some areas as to try to make this feasible. No one else has expressed, up until now, has expressed an interest in doing that. By doing it as an overlay, it would be simple to add to the overlay to the parish map. That would include these restrictions, that's all. That would be all it would be. And what you're getting is that you have the rules and regulations of a municipality, which is very strict on those things, and then you have the rural rules and regulations, and which is the reason a lot of people live in the rural areas, because they don't want any regulations. But you have these areas now, because of population increases, that are kind of in the middle. And so we want to try to have some bridging of that gap where we maintain our rural areas, but we take care of the areas that have become dense and populated.
You know, I certainly agree with you about the rural nature of some areas of the parish, but there are obviously some areas, for example, the place he showed that's one lot between two houses, that is dangerous whenever rodents are infesting that area and children are in that. That's just, in a parish with the population that we have today, it's inexcusable. And one day we're going to be sorry we didn't take the bull by the horns and change this.
Well, the
So
other thing is that we have some areas that people want to have wooded areas,
Certainly.
closer to their houses and everything. So we wanted to make sure that this was based purely on complaints. And
Correct.
so that
That's the key
if
thing,
somebody
complaints.
managed a wooded area next to housing and it was adequately managed, then we want to certainly have them have an opportunity to do that.
No, I agree completely.
Councilman Johnson.
Councilman Joseph, I agree with what everybody's saying here, and I guess the concern that I have, if you have a pasture, and I'm not sure about the areas, I mean, the pictures you show were obvious as far as what I can tell from them. If you have a pasture that's there, farmer cuts that grass twice a year for hay, obviously we don't want to intrude on that, and y'all expressed that. But within the overlay zone, are you going to have a way of deleting that part out of it to where it's not included in it? Because that's going to be the tricky part. That's the phone calls we're going to get from the farmers, because I know when we were talking about the burn ordinance, I got a few phone calls on that. You know, I'm out in the middle of nowhere with a pasture. I got a tree in the middle of the pasture. It falls down. Am I going to have to haul this somewhere to get them hauled off, or can I just burn it? So we've got those type of concerns, and we want to make sure that we do our due diligence with that to make sure that we don't cross that line with those guys and allow them to continue to grow their hay. It's still one of the things that we do. So that would be one of my concerns that I would like to see us within the overlay zone address. The other thing that I see here is the grass in excess of 24 inches. Might be a little bit too tall. You might want to come down on that, because, I mean, in some instances.
No, you don't want to. 'Cause
No.
They can get 24 inches in a hurry.
And then look, and once again, we're talking about a rural area.
Yeah.
If
Right.
someone would cut it twice a year or three
That would-
times a year, that neighbor wouldn't have a problem with that.
Okay.
It's the ones
You
that,
know?
That's fine. I mean, if you're okay with the 24 inches, I am too. It just
Yeah.
seemed like that, you got some grass with, may not centipede, saying it don't
Yeah.
grow
Uh-huh.
2
Yeah.
foot tall.
But
we don't want them to have to manicure it, because we
Right.
just have
Right.
people that.
No, yeah, I understand that. And then the other thing is, I guess the question, within 15 days of the request to do so, and Councilman Shakespeare mentioned the court. Is that gonna be 15 days after the court, or we're gonna have a code enforcement officer give them track down the owner and say, here's a deal, you got 15 days to get it done. Then we're gonna go to court, because that's not
It would,
specific in here.
it would go through the same process that
Process.
we do now.
Right.
So-
And those some of the things, exactly what you're saying, that we wanted to put it on the table to get some input on it, but we know that we have to get some legal things. Like you say, if the pass is, if it 100 feet from a resident or whatever, that's what we have to look at, distance from certain things. If you're 200 feet or 300 feet from, don't put a complaint in. That, you know.
Right.
That's further enough distant that you can see, someone's taking care of it.
This is for discussion.
Right.
This is put out here with a sample, with a map, a proposed map. We want to urge everyone to take a look at it, take a look at the information that's there. Please have your input, either to Councilman Joseph or myself, and we'll bring this forward, depending upon what kind of feedback we get. It may come up again next month. It may have to be later. But we will have it on the agenda for next month, but we may just say that we'll just continue discussion later on. So we just wanted to put it out there, get some feedback and see where we stand.
And we're going,
It's a problem that's in the parish, and we're attempting to find a way to get a solution in these areas without affecting the rural character of the people that are living with.
and as Mr. Shakespeare just said, we encourage, and I hope everybody input on it. If they send us an email and if they're concerns or whatever, so we can eliminate some of the things because we'll know what the public want. Right now, we're sticking it, out there for discussion. And
Very
so
good.
we'll just love everyone input on it.
Appreciate you bringing it forward.
All right? Thank you for having me.
Okay. Number 7, this is something that I think is very important. Report on pipeline incident. Recently, they've had what brought to my attention, not just one. One was brought to my attention very quickly one night and abruptly. But President Martinez brought to my attention that we had 2 pipeline ruptures in the parish recently. As I got into finding out information about this, I was appalled at some of the things that were going on without anyone really having control over it. So I had some discussions with our EOP director, Rick Weber, and he offered to come over here and tell us what we're doing from our standpoint, and then we're going to talk about some of the problems that we see that these pipelines are causing, or the possible problems that are causing throughout the parish, and maybe some of the suggestions of things that we can do about them. So, Rick, you have the floor there.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to brief you and the committee. You should have a hard copy of the presentation in your packet. The first slide that you see in your packet covers some of the demographics of Ascension Parish. We're about 307 square miles, but inside that, so landmass-wise, we're not that big of a parish. But inside the 307 square miles, we've got over 30 petrochemical facilities, storage facilities, and transportation companies. And these companies use 4 modes of transportation to transport their hazardous material. By far the biggest is the Mississippi River. We got 3 Type 1 railways in the parish. Highway tanker trucks are another one that'll be used, and 1,200 linear miles of pipeline throughout the parish. Now, on the next slide that you see is the National Pipeline Mapping System. These are just the pipeline right-of-ways. These aren't the pipelines. So if you live or work anywhere in Ascension Parish, chances are you're going to be in close proximity to one of these pipelines. Now, here's the challenge that first responders face. If you drill into the next slide, we're going to try to drill a little closer to, we'll use Lucimore. You see the Louisiana Regional Airport? Yes. You'll see the Louisiana Regional.
Please show all the
Okay.
pipelines.
It won't. It won't work.
Can we
Clint, can you
get that?
forward
Can
from
we
there?
make sure we get that?
We got it. All right, there we go.
Okay.
All right, again, this one is from the National Pipeline Mapping System, and again, you can see the right-of-ways of all the pipelines within the parish, but this next one is going to start drilling in a little bit closer to Lucimore. You'll see the regional airport there. The next one, you'll see it start to define the pipelines that are in the area. And this next one, these are the pipelines on the right-of-ways north and south of Lucimore. So what you end up having is 13 different pipelines managed by 5 different operators, and these are the products that are in the pipelines: ethane, propylene, nitrogen, butane, isobutane, propane, and butylene. So this is the challenge that we face as the first responders. When the first responders go out on the ground and there's an issue, they have to identify what the product is to begin with, then identify the operator that's managing the pipeline. The first priority is public safety, so they're going to try to evacuate the area immediately around a rupture. But the large percentage of these pipeline problems that we do have is from contractors excavating near a pipeline. That's the biggest issues that we face. But you can see the challenge on the ground. This is what the Emergency Operations Center sees. My people are looking at the National Pipeline Mapping System. First responders on the ground are looking for pipeline markers and trying to identify who the operator of that pipeline is. The next slide that you see is from First Call Networks. It's actually a screen capture from First Call Network. So once the first responders get the people evacuated near the pipeline, my staff is going to start notifying the public in general, because even though you might not be in a hazard area, you can still see it or hear it, and we're going to try to notify you through First Call Networks. This is the system that we use in addition to engaging the media.
And Rick, from that recent large pipeline rupture around Donaldson and then Pelican Point area. This slide that you have here, that was the area that was notified by call?
It's a GIS notification, so we can either draw a diameter or we can draw a square, but this is the exact, pretty close to the same area that we call. You know, I drew it today. It might not be exact, but it's pretty close to what we called that night.
Okay. And how long from the time that the incident occurred until the calls went out?
The last call went out, I believe, was at 10:15, which was the all clear. We do the initial notification, and then we repeat it for an all clear.
Yeah,
Immediately there.
but, I mean, the initial notification, how long after the rupture was the initial notification?
Probably within 45 minutes was the initial notification.
Okay. Is it, and I'm just asking questions from a,
I understand.
from a first-hand thing. 45 minutes after that rupture, people were gone. And there, within 10 minutes, that was the time, whether it was a gas-type pipeline rupture or, as it turned out to be, an oxygen rupture. If it would have been a flammable gas-type rupture, these people wouldn't have been notified before it would have flamed or exploded or something like that. Is there a way that we can, since it's a pipeline rupture, that we can notify the people sooner than 45 minutes?
The first responders were already engaged on the ground before I got involved. So when they know that the pipeline has got a rupture, if you know that there's an incident, they can evacuate the area immediately around the hazard area. What I'm showing you here is most people weren't in the hazard area, but they still could hear it. I mean, this thing sounded like a 747 going off in your backyard. So that fear we wanted to quell. These people weren't in the hazard area, but we wanted to let them know. But the first responders on the ground are going to get the people away from the immediate area. It's going to take a while to get this up online. The fastest we can do this, if we get notified, which I didn't get notified. I was notified by a resident that lived nearby.
Well, and that was my next question. I wanted to know why, you know, I know the sheriff department was there pretty quick, and hazardous material people, but yet you were notified. What can we do to make sure, since the call network goes through your office, is to make sure that you should have been the first one to get notified so that we can get this information out?
But the first call network doesn't just go through my office. The 911 center has access to this system also. So whatever, because I'm not there 24/7. So when I'm not there, the 24-hour control point is the 911 center. So whatever I can do in my office, the 911 center can do from here also.
Okay, so they can also send out calls to the local people to evacuate.
They have complete access to the system. We made sure that they had complete access to first call.
All right, in this particular incident, why didn't they make an immediate call for people to evacuate?
Because when I got on scene, I notified my people to come in and do it. You know, I don't know why the 911 center didn't do it, but I just immediately when I got on scene, we just notified my people to go ahead and make the activation.
Okay. While we own this, I'd like to make sure that 911 people right away, please make sure, because if it would have been, and there's, if you'd have shown the map of that actual area, there was a gas line right near there. There was also a hydrogen line right near there. And those things could have, ruptured also and then exploded. And
Right.
so no one knows whether these were those explosion-type lines or not. And so a lot of people were hanging around trying to figure out what was the best thing to do, and not knowing where it was located, they didn't know where to go or what to do. So,
Right.
One of the things that I'm sure Rick will bring out in this discussion as well is that you have a lot of confusion at the beginning of an incident like this, and trying to narrow it down to find out exactly what's going on. Because one of the worst things you can do as well, if you have a pipeline rupture, if it's the wrong type of material, is to have people evacuate. You get a butylene leak or something like that, and you got a gas cloud, and you tell people to get in their cars and leave. They drive in that gas cloud, they're going to become the ignition source, and it's going to make that situation worse. So before you give these type of evacuation orders, they have to understand exactly what they're dealing with. They have to understand exactly where that gas cloud is going, and they may tell people to walk out on foot. That may be the only recourse that they have to get out of that. So, in giving them a direction to go, a mode of travel, you may not be able to go down the street. You may have to go through backwoods pastures and those type of things, depending on what the safest evacuation route is. So, 45 minutes may seem to be a little bit lengthy time. And why the 911 center didn't do it, I can't answer that question. But again, it's not something that's going to, it's not like a house fire where somebody sees the
Right.
flames and picks up the phone and calls for the fire department or
Yeah,
sheriff's
ambulance.
department or an ambulance or something like that when it happens within minutes. These things takes a little bit of time to evaluate exactly what's happening and understand what you're dealing with, because in the hazardous chemicals business, it's not something that most people don't understand either way you go. If you evacuate them and it's not needed, they complain about that. And if you evacuate them and it is needed, what took so long kind of thing.
Right.
So it's a fine line that they walk to try to make sure that the public safety is there. And sometimes we make mistakes, sometimes we don't. But at least with this situation, everybody's safe. But I agree with you. We can always look to ways to improve the job that we've done on everything, and I think that has taken place with this. You always do a critique on any type of response that you do. A good organization does, and we have some of the best here in the parish, and I think they have taken that in. We've had several incidents this year where we've done some critiques and learned some things from, and it's always a process.
Just
Yeah.
let me reiterate, the fire and police and myself was already on the ground, and you know what it's like, Benny, to do a size up when you get there. You size up the situation, but the first thing to do is get the people away from the immediate danger area. Outside of that, this takes a little bit more time to set up. I mean, you got to actually type the message in. It goes voice, text, and email. So the hot zone, the area that we needed to get the people out of, was done by fire and police. My people were already in place. There was no need to call the 911 center and say, do this. My people were already there. That's the reason the 911 center wasn't requested to do it, because my people were already in place.
I think that may be part of the question, Rick, is that before you guys got on scene, they're capable of doing it? Was the call obviously wasn't made for them to do that? Was there enough information prior to that the reverse call could have been put out to make that evacuation order known a little bit quicker? But again, the evaluation and the size up, you're exactly right.
Yeah. 911 center is 10 miles away, so they would have to tell them the GIS location to do that, and they were still trying to figure out where this thing was at the time.
I just wanted to make sure that within, as you go back and you discuss with all of these, because obviously we got a great group of people that's working on all of this, that we emphasize that it's very, very imperative that we get to the point where as soon as possible, the powers that be are notified as to the extent so that the people can be informed, because this is not going to be the last one in this parish, and this is not going to be the worst one. As it so happens, and I think you're going to talk about it later, we had a 10-inch oxygen line, 480 pounds per square inch pressure. 3 feet away, or 3.5 feet away, was a 10-inch hydrogen line, and they were excavating, and they went in between both of them. And they had a situation where they didn't get a dotty. They had some other issues on that, but with all of that, it could have easily erupted and also erupted a hydrogen line, which could have then erupted a gas line, which was nearby. So that being known, I don't think that 45 minutes is acceptable to let the people know what they need to do in the future. This was something that I think caught us, and it was a unique situation. It was also something that it was hard to find the location. So we understand all that, but I just want to emphasize, because I found out firsthand how you go through this, that we're going to have to do something in the future to make sure that that people kind of know what to do, or as in Benny says, whether you have to drive out in your car or walk or stay in your house, because depending upon what the thing is. So.
True. And First Call is a really good system, but it's not the answer to everything that you have. I mean, it's, you engage the media, you engage the first responders, you do everything that you can do, but First Call is a good system, but it's not the end-all, be-all. I mean, so it's a tool that we use to help notify the public. If you look at the next slide that you have on there, this is the actual notifications from that incident that night. If I can get it to forward. There we go. That night, when the calls did go out, 726 residents received an emergency message. 594 listened to a complete message. 100 hung up before the message was complete. 32 hearing impaired messages were played, and 367 were either behind a commercial system like a plant, or people just wasn't home and didn't answer the phone. So the rate going out and the people that got notified was adequate. So it's a good system again, but if you don't engage the media and use all systems available to you, you're kind of falling short, and we did that night. We used all sources that we could. Quickly on pipeline safety, what I'd like for the residents to do is go to our website and download this emergency preparedness guide. There's pipeline safety information in it. Get familiar with some of the markers. The two round ones are the pipeline right-of-way markers. Just be familiar with that. What you really need to understand is that the pipeline marker doesn't give you the exact location of the pipeline. It gives you the right-of-way. It's like the one on Lucemore. You got 13 pipelines there, but it doesn't give you the exact position that's there. A couple of quick tips how to recognize a leak. If you got petroleum on the ground, a dense white cloud, dead vegetation, a roaring sound or a hissing sound, odor of gasoline, and then what to do. Leave the area immediately. Avoid driving through a cloud. Avoid direct contact with gas or liquids. And if surrounded by gasoline or natural gas vapors, don't start your car, don't turn on a light switch, ring a doorbell, because that could be a source of ignition for you. If you got any more questions particular about that one particular incident, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Go ahead.
I was not aware of what led up to this, so I would like a little information about that, please.
Okay. For the incident itself?
Yes.
A contractor was boring into the right-of-way, and they got between two pipelines, and it nicked a 10-inch gas line, a high-pressure oxygen line, and that's what caused it to rupture. Even if you block them in pretty quick, if it's miles of pipeline, it may take several hours just to bleed down, so it's gonna roar for quite some time. So you can hear that pipeline rushing air from the pipeline probably to the river.
2 miles, 3 miles.
Yeah, at least.
So this contractor was doing that without having gotten approval and without the understanding of what was there and where it was?
I think he was, I'd have to confirm it for you to see exactly what he was doing, but I think he was off on the right-of-way also, so I'd have to give you more details on what happened with the actual contractor.
So my question is, what procedure is in place when this happens to help contractors understand that they can't do that? And what impetus do we give that they not ever do that again? Is there any kind of punishment meted out, any kind of fine for having made this kind of what could have been tragic mistake?
The issue that we're facing is the one that we don't have ordinance dealing with hazmat or pipelines in the parish. I mean, the laws that we would have to put in place would be directly from the Right to Know unit of the Louisiana State Police. That's what we'd have to enforce. Well, locally, we don't have any ordinances that cover that.
State police and DEQ regulate that.
Yeah, well, state police and DEQ regulate it unless, only for petroleum base.
DOTD regulates actually some of this
DOT
also.
as well, yeah.
But an oxygen and nitrogen and all of those things and hydrogen are not regulated by them. And that's what I was told over there on the site. And I was also told that there wasn't, well, pretty obvious that there wasn't any dotties taken on where these were located. There was none. And my question is, who inspects these? They say they're regulated by DEQ and everything
DOT.
on the petroleum-based ones, which would be gas and stuff, but they are not regulated on these other ones. Obviously, oxygen or hydrogen is very dangerous and can cause, in the right situation, cause just as much damage as a gas one. Who do we get to make sure, and as a parish, when these things happen like this, obviously it was worker or company error, what recourse do we have, what recourse do the people have, is to make sure that this is done correctly, because after what I saw, I don't want this happening again, because things wasn't followed. I know good practices wasn't followed, yet I don't know who to turn to or how to make them follow it, or who would be inspecting it.
Through the Louisiana Emergency Response Commission is how you can enforce it. So I'll get with the commission on the Louisiana Emergency Response Commission and get their final report on it, and I can present it to the rest of the council. if
Can
you'd
you
like to
do
see it.
that
Yes.
and give us some recommendations as to how we can assure the public that from here on out, when somebody puts a pipeline in our parish, which I'm sure there will be more in the future, that we can assure them that someone will be inspecting, someone will make sure that they dig where they're supposed to dig, and that people will be protected, because there were some things, as we look at it now, that they could have taken some previous right-of-ways and continued on, and yet they veered off of that. And, you know, quite frankly, I just don't see how they could be that far off on their digging.
True.
So please find out some information, and I'd like to, how long you want to take before you want to come back before us and make a report?
If you can give me at least 2 weeks, I can.
Okay, well, we can put you on the agenda for the next month, because we do want to not let this, I think this is one of the most important things we do as we continue, because as I was looking into it, we found out there were so many loopholes that things can just happen where we have no control over them.
Sure.
So.
And
And we look forward to your directions and your suggestions, very, very much so.
yeah, we just, the LERC met last week, but I'll get directly with the commission on it, and we'll give you all the data and all the laws that this applies to, and we'll get it to you, and what we can do.
And what I was saying earlier, Kent, with DEQ and state police and all that, and Rick can confirm this or correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't mean that in the sense that they are regulating them from a standpoint of view of how they dig or any other stuff, but would they have laws in place that the company that was at fault in the accident can be fined, and the officers are subject to arrest or whatever, depending on what laws that they violated or actions that they take, not to mention civil penalties that could come from either the company that owned the pipeline that they damaged, whether they were working for them or not. So there's a bunch of different ways that they have some kind of recourse that could be set against them. It just depends on the outcome of the investigation and what they, either DEQ or state police decide to do from that. From my experience within the industry, that it doesn't take much to get fined from state police.
No.
But, I mean, one of the things for sure, because we got that feedback right away, is that someone that has an existing pipeline needs to be on site whenever they're digging in the periphery of that, and so that they can say, okay, you're okay to dig here, and, you know, that's not on our pipeline, because there was no one that, to my knowledge, as we asked questions, that were
That was on scene.
okay them or inspecting them. They were just a company that was doing that, and, you know, after the fact, them being fined or anything like that, you know, so be it. If that would have happened while they were actually digging it, it happened about a week after the rupture happened about a week after they actually did the bore. There were about 20 people that was around that area while they were boring, and it would have been, that they would have been killed.
Were they boring for the pipeline company, or they were just some out? Because, I mean, if it was a pipeline company or something of that nature, they're usually pretty, I would imagine, pretty on spot with their inspection. But these guys, if they were off-site or a different entity out there doing something on the periphery and got way off of where they were supposed to be, I don't know that you would have anybody doing any inspections on them. I mean, it depends on what they're out there for.
They were boring for one of our local manufacturers, and I think what happened is that they were off and got between two pipelines while they were boring and nicked the oxygen line. So what they were concerned about with is there any other damage as it was
Right.
going down?
Right. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because there was some concerns with everyone involved, the way they were doing that process, is how close or was there any damage to the other pipelines in the area, because there was numerous bores and numerous digs in the area that crossed numerous pipelines.
Right.
And so,
You know, as you mentioned earlier, the oxygen line is not even listed on the National Pipeline Mapping System
Right.
because it's not a regulated line. The hydrogen line is listed, but the oxygen line wasn't.
yeah, and it's not regulated. And 30% oxygen will flame up and cause problems. So, and that was registered in some areas near there for a while, I know. So those are all things that happen. We want people to know, we want people to find out about it, and we don't want to drop this without making sure that whatever we do, it's in the best interest of everyone here and everyone's safety. So, you know, please make that a priority, Rick, and we appreciate, you don't know, all the good work you do and your office and everyone else and all of the first responders. They were there, and a lot of people didn't know what was there and what was available, and they came. They just didn't hesitate. It was remarkable response by the people there, and it was very, very hard to find. So I want to, you know, give kudos to everyone that you know, we were all leaving and they were coming in, you know, and that's what these guys do, and they don't think about it, and they just do it. And so we want to let them know how much we appreciate, you know, all the good people we have responding to this.
Okay.
But we want to try to keep that down to as little as possible
Exactly.
in the future. So thank you very much. Mr. President? You wanna-
I was just going to say that most of this is due to human error, and but on the other hand, I think that we need to look at what's been going on. I mean, when these incidents occur on a regular basis, we need to see if we can tighten our belts as far as ordinances go, and also look at maybe a better marking system in the parish, require them to mark better than they do, rather than just putting two right-of-way pipes, markers there. We certainly try to train our people, and of course, if you don't use the DOTI system, it's not going to do you any good. So if somebody violates that, we should have an ordinance in place to where they don't come back in Ascension Parish, because, you know, they've not taken the time nor cared about what would happen by not doing that, and they're required to do so by law. But at that point, if a specific company or whatever, just put it in the ordinance form and just don't allow them back as far as any construction
Yeah,
work.
we were not too impressed with a number of things that happened, not just this, so.
There's quite a few state laws that can be enforced, but as a local ordinance, there's very few in Chapter 8 of our ordinances that can be enforced in this term.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you. Give us something and we'll be glad to do it.
we will.
Any other discussion? With that, offer number 8.
Motion adjourned, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Johnson, second by Mr. Cazzo. This meeting hereby adjourned.